The Christmas tree lights cast their warm glow across our living room, but I felt nothing but ice in my veins. December 23rd, 2 days before Christmas. My husband of 8 years stood before me holding a manila envelope like it contained his freedom. "Sarah, we need to talk." Those 4 words. The same 4 words that had ended 1,000 marriages before mine. But I never thought they'd be spoken in my house, with our wedding photos still hanging on the wall behind him. He handed me the envelope. My fingers trembled as I opened it. Divorce papers. Official. Legal. Final. The ink still smelled fresh. "I'm sorry," he said, but his voice carried no weight of apology. "I've been seeing someone. She's pregnant. She's moving in tomorrow."
Tomorrow.
Christmas Eve. While families across America gathered around trees and shared love, my husband would be moving his pregnant girlfriend into the home we'd built together. I stared at the papers. The words blurred together. Irreconcilable differences. Division of assets. Custody arrangements for a marriage that had produced no children. We'd tried for years. Fertility treatments. Hope followed by crushing disappointment. Month after month of negative pregnancy tests while he held me and promised we'd keep trying. Now she was pregnant. His girlfriend. The woman he'd chosen over 8 years of marriage, over the dreams we'd shared, over the life we'd planned. How long? My voice sounded hollow, distant. 6 months. 6 months. While I'd been planning our anniversary getaway, he'd been planning his escape. While I'd been buying Christmas presents, he'd been buying a future with someone else. "I need you to sign these tonight. My lawyer says we can expedite everything if you don't contest." Contest. Like our marriage was a game show prize I could choose to fight for or walk away from. I looked up at him. Really looked. His face held no guilt, no remorse. Just impatience. He wanted this over. He wanted me gone so he could start fresh with her. With their baby. Where am I supposed to go? That's not my problem anymore. The cruelty of it hit me like a physical blow. 8 years of marriage reduced to not his problem anymore. I signed the papers. What else could I do? Fight for a man who'd already chosen someone else? Beg him to love me the way he loved her? Some dignities, once lost, can never be recovered. He took the papers and headed for the door. "I'll be back tomorrow with Lisa. We'll need you gone by then."
Lisa.
Her name was Lisa. The woman who'd stolen my husband, my home, my future. The woman carrying the child I'd never been able to give him. The door closed behind him with a soft click that sounded like the end of everything I'd ever known. I stood alone in the living room we'd decorated together just weeks ago. The Christmas stockings still hung by the fireplace. Mine and his, side by side like we'd always be. How naive that seemed now. But as I stared at those stockings, something shifted inside me. The crushing grief began to transform into something harder, sharper. Anger. Pure, focused anger. He wanted me gone by tomorrow?
Fine.
But he had no idea what he'd just done. He had no idea what I was capable of when cornered. And he certainly had no idea what I discovered just 3 weeks ago. 3 weeks ago, I'd been doing our taxes early, getting organized for the new year like the dutiful wife I'd always been. I'd been going through his business documents, the ones he kept in his home office, when I found them. Financial records that didn't match what he'd told me. Bank statements showing transfers I'd never seen. Investment accounts I didn't know existed. And most importantly, business dealings that would make the IRS very, very interested. My husband ran a construction company. Small-scale residential projects, mostly. He'd always claimed the business barely broke even. We lived modestly. Drove older cars. He'd convinced me for years that money was tight, that we couldn't afford the fertility treatments I wanted, that we needed to be careful with every dollar. But those documents told a different story. My husband wasn't struggling. My husband was wealthy. Very wealthy. And he'd been hiding every penny of it from me. The bank statements showed regular large deposits that never appeared on the tax returns I'd seen. Cash payments from clients that somehow never made it into the official books. And most damning of all, a separate set of financial records that showed the true scope of his business operations. He wasn't just building houses. He was laundering money. The realization had hit me like lightning. My husband, the man I trusted with everything, wasn't just hiding money from me. He was hiding money from the government. The construction business was a front for washing cash from sources I didn't even want to imagine. At the time, I'd been too shocked to act, too scared to confront him. I'd put the documents back exactly where I'd found them and pretended I'd never seen them. But I'd taken photos. Dozens of photos. Every document, every bank statement, every piece of evidence that proved what he really was. I'd planned to confront him after Christmas. Maybe suggest counseling. Try to understand why he'd built this wall of lies around our marriage. I'd even wondered if the money stress was why we couldn't conceive. Maybe his guilt was affecting us both. How stupid I'd been. The money stress wasn't affecting our ability to have children. He simply didn't want children with me. He was planning his exit strategy, building his nest egg, preparing for the day he'd trade me in for a newer model. Well, now that day had come, and he'd made one critical error. He'd underestimated me. I walked to his office and opened the filing cabinet. The documents were still there, exactly where he'd left them. He was arrogant enough to believe I'd never think to look, never think to question the financial picture he'd painted for our marriage. I took out my phone and began taking fresh photos. But this time, I wasn't gathering evidence to confront him. I was gathering evidence to destroy him. The next morning, Christmas Eve, I was gone before he arrived with Lisa. I'd packed everything I truly cared about and loaded it into my car. The rest could burn for all I cared. But I wasn't running away. I was strategically retreating. There's a difference between fleeing and positioning yourself for attack. I'd booked a room at a hotel downtown. Nothing fancy, but it had Wi-Fi and room service, and that was all I needed for what came next. The first call I made was to the Internal Revenue Service. The IRS has a whistleblower program. People who provide information about tax fraud can receive a percentage of the money recovered. It's designed to encourage reporting of financial crimes that might otherwise go unnoticed. The agent I spoke with was very interested in what I had to say. Mrs. Patterson, these photos you've sent us represent potentially millions in unreported income. This is a very serious matter. I understand. I'm prepared to cooperate fully with any investigation. We'll need the original documents. I can get them. My husband doesn't know I'm aware of any of this. There was a pause on the line. Mrs. Patterson, I need to ask, are you doing this because you're going through a divorce? The question was fair. Vindictive spouses have been known to make false accusations during bitter separations. But my evidence wasn't false, and my motivations, while personal, didn't change the facts. Agent Morrison, my husband handed me divorce papers 2 days ago and told me his pregnant girlfriend was moving into our house the next day. Yes, I'm angry. But these documents are real. This money is real. And if he's been committing tax fraud for years, that's real too. We'll investigate everything thoroughly. If your information leads to recovery of unpaid taxes, you could be entitled to a substantial reward.
A reward.
The irony wasn't lost on me. My husband had hidden millions from me during our marriage. Now, the government might pay me a percentage of what they recovered from him. The second call I made was to the state licensing board. Construction companies need licenses to operate. Those licenses come with requirements for honesty, integrity, and lawful business practices. Companies that engage in money laundering tend to lose those licenses very quickly. The third call was to his biggest legitimate client. Harrison Development was building a new shopping complex on the north side of town. They'd hired my husband's company for the electrical work. It was $1 million contract, the kind that could sustain a small construction business for 2 years. Mr. Harrison? This is Sarah Patterson, David Patterson's wife. I have some information you might find concerning about the contractor you've hired. Harrison Development had a reputation to protect. They couldn't afford to be associated with money laundering or tax fraud. The conversation was brief, but effective. The fourth call was to his bank. Banks are required to report suspicious financial activity. When a customer's wife calls to report potential money laundering involving her husband's accounts, they take it very seriously. Yes, I'd like to speak with someone about suspicious account activity. I believe my husband may be using his business accounts to launder money. By noon on Christmas Eve, I'd set in motion a chain of events that would destroy everything my husband had built. His business, his finances, his reputation, his freedom. The IRS would seize his assets. The licensing board would revoke his permits. His clients would flee. His bank would freeze his accounts. But I wasn't done. I took out my laptop and began researching Lisa, my husband's pregnant girlfriend, the woman who'd helped him destroy my marriage. In the digital age, it's surprisingly easy to learn about someone if you know where to look. Lisa Hoffman, 26 years old, worked as a receptionist at a dental office downtown. Divorced once already, at 23. No children from her first marriage, but now carrying my husband's babies. I found her social media accounts. Pictures of her and David together, dating back 6 months, just like he'd said. Photos of them at restaurants I recognized, places he'd told me he was having business dinners. Pictures of her showing off an engagement ring I'd never seen. Engagement ring. He hadn't just been having an affair. He'd been planning to marry her. The divorce papers he'd handed me weren't the end of his relationship with me. They were the beginning of his relationship with her. I scrolled through more photos. Lisa at a doctor's appointment, holding an ultrasound image. The caption read, "Baby Patterson due in June. Can't wait to be a family." Baby Patterson. She was already using his name, already claiming the title I'd held for 8 years. But there was something else in these photos that caught my attention, something that made my blood run cold. In the background of one picture, I could see part of Lisa's apartment, and on her coffee table, clearly visible, was a stack of documents. The same type of manila folders my husband kept his business records in.
She knew.
Lisa knew about the money laundering. She wasn't just the innocent girlfriend who'd stolen him away. She was complicit. She was part of it. I screenshot every photo, every caption, every comment. Evidence of their relationship, their plans, their shared knowledge of his crimes. Then I made one more call. Detective Rodriguez? This is Sarah Patterson. I have information about a money laundering operation involving my husband and his girlfriend. I think you'll find it very interesting. The police were even more interested than the IRS. Money laundering often connects to other crimes. Drug trafficking, organized crime, human trafficking. When someone is washing large amounts of cash, it rarely comes from legitimate sources. Detective Rodriguez agreed to meet with me that evening. Mrs. Patterson, what you're describing could be part of a much larger investigation. We've been tracking suspicious financial activity in the construction industry for months. My husband's business might be connected to other companies. It's possible. These operations often involve networks of legitimate-seeming businesses that are actually fronts for money laundering. The meeting lasted 3 hours. I turned over copies of every document, every photo, every piece of evidence I gathered. Detective Rodriguez took detailed notes and asked dozens of questions about David's business operations, his associates, his patterns of behavior. Mrs. Patterson, I need to ask you the same question the IRS agent probably asked. Are you doing this because you're angry about the divorce? Detective Rodriguez, 3 days ago, I thought I was married to a struggling small businessman who loved me but wanted out of our marriage. Now I know I was married to a criminal who's been systematically lying to me for years while building a secret fortune and planning to abandon me for his pregnant girlfriend. Am I angry? Absolutely. Does that make the crimes any less real? Absolutely not. We'll need some time to investigate, but based on what you've shown me, I think we'll be able to build a strong case. How long? These things take time. Financial crimes require careful investigation. We'll need to trace money flows, examine bank records, interview associates. Could be months. Months. I'd expected immediate satisfaction, swift justice. But justice, like revenge, is a dish best served cold. Christmas Day passed in a haze of room service and legal documents. I spent the day organizing everything I knew into a comprehensive file. Timelines, financial records, phone numbers, connections. If I was going to destroy my husband's life, I was going to do it thoroughly and professionally. The day after Christmas, my phone rang. Sarah? It's Agent Morrison from the IRS. We've had a chance to review the materials you provided. I think you should know, we executed a search warrant this morning. A search warrant? We raided your husband's business and home. We found exactly what you said we'd find. Mrs. Patterson, this case is bigger than we initially thought. Your husband isn't just evading taxes. He's been laundering money for multiple criminal organizations. The news hit me like a physical blow. I'd known David was hiding money. I hadn't known he was connected to serious criminals. Is he under arrest? He's being questioned. We expect charges to be filed within the week. After I hung up, I sat in my hotel room staring out the window at the city below. Somewhere out there, my husband was learning that his comfortable world of lies was crumbling around him. Somewhere out there, Lisa was discovering that the man she'd chosen over someone else's marriage was not who she thought he was. I should have felt satisfaction, victory, justice. Instead, I felt empty. 8 years of marriage. 8 years of shared dreams, shared struggles, shared love. All of it built on lies. All of it meaningless. My phone buzzed. A text message from a number I didn't recognize. Is this Sarah Patterson? I stared at the message. Unknown numbers had been calling and texting all day. Reporters, probably. Word was getting out about the investigation. Who is this? This is Lisa Hoffman. I think we need to talk. Lisa. David's girlfriend. The woman carrying his child. The woman I'd helped destroy along with him. I don't think we have anything to discuss.
Please.
I know you hate me. I know you have every right to hate me. But I think David lied to both of us. Both of us. The phrase hung in the digital air between us like an offering of truce. What do you mean? Can we meet? Just for coffee? There are things you need to know about what David told me about you. About your marriage. About why he said he had to leave. Against every instinct screaming at me to block her number and forget she existed, I agreed to meet. The coffee shop was neutral territory. Public, but private. Safe, but tense. Lisa looked younger in person than she had in her photos. Younger and more fragile. Her pregnancy was showing now, a small bump beneath her winter coat. Thank you for coming, she said as she sat down across from me. I'm not sure why I'm here. Because David lied to both of us. She opened her purse and took out a folder. Inside were printed emails, text messages, photos. He told me you two have been separated for over a year. He said you were living in different states. He said the divorce was just a formality because you'd both moved on. I stared at the evidence she'd laid out. Screenshots of conversations where David painted a picture of a marriage that had been over for years. A wife who'd moved to California for work. A relationship that existed only on paper. He showed me photos of the house. He said you'd already moved out. He said it was his house, that he'd bought it after the separation. Our house. The house we'd chosen together, decorated together, lived in together right up until the day he handed me divorce papers. Lisa, I was living in that house until 3 days ago. We were sharing a bed until 3 days ago. I was planning our anniversary trip until 3 days ago. The color drained from her face. That's impossible, David said. David is a liar. About everything. About me, about you, about the money, about the business. Everything. I told her about the financial crimes, the investigation, the money laundering. I watched her face as the reality of who she'd fallen in love with became clear. The money he's been spending on me, on the apartment, she touched her stomach. It's all illegal. All of it. I'm pregnant with a criminal's baby. The words hung between us like a death sentence. Lisa, there's something else you need to know. In some of your social media photos, I can see business documents in your apartment. If the police think you knew about the money laundering, I could be charged too. You could be charged too. We sat in silence, two women whose lives had been destroyed by the same man. Two women who'd believed his lies, trusted his promises, built futures around his deceptions. "What am I supposed to do now?" she whispered. "I don't know." But even as I said it, I realized I did know. I knew exactly what she needed to do, because it was what I should have done months ago when I first discovered the documents. You need a lawyer, and you need to cooperate with the investigation. Turn on David. Save yourself. Lisa called her lawyer from the coffee shop. I listened as she explained her situation, her pregnancy, her relationship with David, her complete ignorance of his criminal activities. When she hung up, she looked at me with something that might have been gratitude. "My lawyer says if I cooperate fully with the investigation, they might offer me immunity." Good. Sarah, I know I destroyed your marriage. I know I'm the reason your life fell apart. But I swear to you, I thought he was divorced. I thought you were out of the picture. I would never have. I know. And I did know. Looking at her, seeing her fear and confusion and regret, I believed her. She'd been manipulated just like I had. Used just like I had. Lied to just like I had. David hadn't chosen her over me. He'd chosen himself over both of us. The next week passed in a blur of phone calls, meetings, and legal proceedings. The investigation expanded. More businesses were raided. More arrests were made. David's construction company was revealed to be part of a network that had laundered millions of dollars over several years. David was charged with money laundering, tax evasion, racketeering, and fraud. His bail was set at $2 million. Money he couldn't access because all his accounts had been frozen. Lisa was granted immunity in exchange for her cooperation. She testified about David's lies, his deception, his manipulation of both of us. I was officially recognized as a whistleblower. The IRS informed me that my reward would likely be substantial, though the exact amount wouldn't be determined until all the money was recovered. But the money wasn't why I'd done it. The justice wasn't why I'd done it. I'd done it because David had looked me in the eye on December 23rd and told me I wasn't his problem anymore. Well, now he wasn't mine either. 6 months later, I was sitting in my new apartment reading the newspaper when I saw the headline, "Local construction company owner sentenced to 15 years in federal prison." David had been convicted on all charges. 15 years. He'd be 58 when he got out if he got out. Federal sentences don't offer much chance for early release. Lisa had had her baby, a girl. She'd moved back in with her parents and was working to rebuild her life. We didn't stay in touch, but I heard through mutual acquaintances that she was doing well. The IRS reward had been substantial, life-changing. I'd used part of it to buy a small house across town. The rest I'd invested carefully. I was financially secure for the first time in my adult life, ironically thanks to the husband who'd convinced me we were barely getting by. I should have felt victorious. I should have felt satisfied that justice had been served, that the man who'd betrayed me was paying the price for his crimes. Instead, I felt something quieter, something more complex. I felt free. Not free because David was in prison, though there was certainly satisfaction in knowing he was facing the consequences of his choices. Free because I finally knew the truth. About him, about our marriage, about the lies I'd been living with for years. Free because I discovered I was stronger than I'd ever imagined. When cornered, when betrayed, when left with nothing, I'd found the courage to fight back. Free because I'd learned that sometimes the best revenge isn't heating up at all. Sometimes the best revenge is serving justice cold, methodically, completely. My phone buzzed. A text message from a number I didn't recognize. "Hey Sarah, this is Tom Rodriguez from the police department. Just wanted to let you know the Patterson case helped us crack a major organized crime investigation. Your information saved us years of work. Thank you." I smiled and set the phone aside. David had been wrong about one thing when he handed me those divorce papers on December 23rd. I had become his problem, his biggest problem. And unlike him, I'd solved it completely. The Christmas lights were already appearing in store windows. Another December, another Christmas season. This time, I'd be celebrating alone, but not lonely. This time, I'd be celebrating freedom. The kind of freedom that comes from knowing exactly who you are, exactly what you're capable of, and exactly what happens to people who underestimate you. David had handed me divorce papers and thought he was ending our story. Instead, he'd just given me the pen to write the ending myself. And what an ending it was.